world where everyone thinks they're a crypto trader, you need to understand that your downfall is going to be who you bank with. Pick the wrong bank, and it could double, triple, or quadruple your tax burden. Pick the wrong bank, and you could be subject to laws you don't even know about. Pick the wrong bank, and you could actually land yourself in jail in places worldwide. We're going to break this down in Operation, the best on and offshore banks to go ghost, to go invisible with your crypto, to shield your asset property that is crypto, and more importantly, not to be suckered by the metaverse, not to be suckered by these big banks offering things that don't actually exist, not to be suckered by different banking regulations. If you haven't seen my 10 new crypto laws that have already passed, most of them, I recommend you watch that video fast so you understand what your laws and what your regulation, what your legal liabilities are, because these laws are going into effect in the next couple of weeks. Let's get into it. Now, here at Privacy X, we believe privacy is right and it's right that needs to be protected. And if you don't protect it and I don't protect it, you can bet that the banks and the governments and the big corporations will not protect it. And it starts with who you bank with. Just going down to your local mom and pop bank might not work for you. We talk a lot about ghosting, like I said, because you need to have a ghost business. You need to be a ghost citizen. You've got the New World Order and you've got these organizations trying to make the world government. Well, you need to take that to your advantage and become a global citizen to shield your assets, shield your personal liability, shield your business, and shield these governments from seizing your crypto. Governments are ramping up seizing crypto, and with these new tax laws, they already plan to take hundreds of billions of dollars in crypto right out of these exchanges because they can. Now, if you're not already a ghost, I recommend you go to Privacy X Project right now. Unfortunately, we have to raise our rates going into next year because we're getting so many requests to be a ghost. So if you're on the fence, you want to go full ghost, so you don't deal with these laws and all this rigmarole that's going on. You want to take yourself off the digital grid and be able to protect yourself and be able to protect your business. I recommend you go to Privacy X Project right now and check it out. We have to raise our rates because we're getting so many requests. I'm bringing on new people at Privacy X all the time to be able to help serve you guys and help you guys with this process in crypto, in assets, in how to disappear, in how to find people, in how to shelter assets, in how to actually become a ghost in a digital world, and how to structure your online presence, your offline presence, etc. You can learn more about that at privacyxproject.com. But today we're going to get into the banking and what you want to do. Now, most of these banks, they'll tell you that they're trying to protect you, you, from tax avoidance, that really hurts you, from money laundering and from fraud. Quite literally the practices practiced by most major banks. Now, first question people ask me is, Cody, can you use any of the big banks? Well, frankly, I use Wells Fargo and US Bank all the time for crypto and have no problem. But, and I'm going to get into this later, so you need to buckle up and understand what I'm saying. This is a video that's worth you taking notes and then doing some due diligence. And again, you can talk to us over at Privacy X and we can help you out. But I use Wells Fargo and I use US Bank, but it's recycled money through the business. And we'll get into that in a second because I structure everything as a corporation because the United States and now the world basically only has laws to protect corporations. They don't have laws to protect people. And that's why doing the structure that we talk about here at Privacy X and protecting yourself and becoming a ghost is so important for every single person. So can you use these banks? Yeah, but not in the way you think. Now, there's a lot of really good bank countries, and people always ask me, Cody, what is the best? There's no best because it depends on your situation, how much money you make, how much money you have, what kind of assets you have, where your domicile country is. So are you a Canadian national or United States, or maybe you live in Berlin or Panama, or maybe you live in Costa Rica, or maybe you live in South Africa. We work with people worldwide. So depending upon where you live, this is going to change a little. But just for banks, just right off the bat, Switzerland is one of the best. Caymans is always a premium banking place. Hong Kong, Panama, the Seychelles are also really good. And then another place that's often overlooked is Belize. So those are places that are really good for banking. People ask me, Australia, one of the worst. People also ask me about Canada. Now, the National Bank of Canada is actually very crypto friendly, but it is very heavily regulated. So I do not recommend that. And of course, in the United States, you've got some good, some bad. So let's get into these top banks. Buckle up for that, and let's break this down. The first one is Alibank, and you might have heard of Alibank because it is integrated into Coinbase. Now, the problem, there's pros and cons with Coinbase. I've talked a lot about Coinbase. I've talked a lot about other crypto exchanges. One of the biggest pros to Coinbase is it's pretty secure, pretty reliable, and you could bring your money directly in, but you're giving up pretty much all anonymity and security. So what I do is I use the different on-ramp and then transfer cryptos over to Coinbase. Now, is Coinbase have anonymity? No, it doesn't. It's not a anonymity-based exchange, so keep that in mind. But for some big trades and things like that, Coinbase can have some value. But Alibank itself does have a lot of value, and a lot of people, if you're a corporate structure, and keep in mind, there's a big difference between having these things in your corporation's name and having these things in your name. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. And a lot of people don't seem to get it. This world is founded on corporate laws, so you have to join the party if you want to protect yourself. Unfortunately, this world penalizes you for being a person. It just does. So keep that in mind. The next one is going to blow your socks off, but it's actually true, and that's Goldman Sachs. Now, I know most people don't want to be in business with Goldman Sachs, and I do have to admit that personally, I do not use Goldman Sachs. It's actually the only one on this list I don't use, but I have so many wealthy clients who swear by it because of the Bitcoin ETFs and some of the other regulations. Now, Goldman Sachs is actually toggled. Back in 2018, they were looking like they were going to get out of crypto, then they go back and forth, and they've talked a lot of negative about crypto. One bank you won't see on this list, of course, is Chase Bank, because the beta, Jamie Dimon, is all about, oh, Bitcoin's a fraud, it's a scam, and then behind the scenes, he's buying as much Bitcoin as he can because he's a liar, he's a fraud, et cetera, et cetera. So keep that in mind. Now, another one that's really good for the European market and the U.S. market, and I've heard they're expanding in Asia, is Revolut. Now, this is really good, and Revolut has a lot of options, not a traditional bank, and not everything on this list is a traditional bank, but it gives you a lot of options, and some of these ones are actually online apps as well, which gives you a lot of options for, for different cryptos and to kind of have an entry point. Keep in mind, we're looking for an entry point. Once you have an entry, then you could navigate different exchanges, which that's a topic for a completely different video, and I've broke some of that down in the past. Next one I want to talk about is another one that's surprising that I've used a lot, and that's Barclays. Barclays, if you have a corporate account, is incredible for crypto, and it's probably one of my favorite just for ease of use. It is a giant bank, and you've got global distribution. You have a bunch of ease of use features. So Barclays is actually pretty interesting, and they pretty much work with people globally, at least to my knowledge. And also you can have a domestic LLC that has a Barclays account. I've got people in Asia and a lot of other countries that I work with that utilize Barclays. So that is a decent option. The next one I want to talk about is Simple Bank. Simple Bank is kind of cool. I recommend you check it out. Now, it is very heavily focused on U.S. customers, but it has expanded. It's got the recent Switzerland connection, and there's a Swiss distribution app now where a lot of people are getting big on Swiss banking. Now, the reason I'm careful when I recommend Swiss banking, and I want to talk about banks that the average person can use. Now, I'm going to do a part 2 to this video with advanced banks, basically people who have, at least a couple $100K. I will admit, I don't use a lot of these banks for my stuff because there's let's just call them more premium banks, but I do use Barclays and I do use a couple of these regularly, but there's more premium banks if you've got a net worth, 250, 500K, certainly over $1 million that I'd recommend. But I would say 90% of you are probably only doing, 30 grand, 50 grand, 80 grand, 100 grand, 10 grand, whatever it is, 3 grand, $1,000. These are all great options for that. So these are good entry points. And then if you have more capital, and I've done a couple videos on ghost banks that I recommend. I've done a couple in the Caymans and some others, so you guys can check those videos. But these are better entry points. And Simple Bank I've really been liking lately. I've been playing around with them. Their app features are really good. Their anonymity features actually are pretty good if you use them properly and you set them up properly. And I cannot stress enough that all of this I'm talking about setting up a corporation. I do not, under any circumstances, set all this up in my own name like a lot of you guys do. That is ludicrous. If you do not have the corporate structure we recommend at Privacy X, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have no anonymity, no privacy, and you're going to be governed by... It's just not going to go well, guys. You might as well just use your local bank. You might as well just tie into the IRS at that point because it just doesn't matter. Crypto is probably not even a good option for you at that point. And I've been telling a lot of people that, a lot of people have asked me, is it worth doing crypto in my own name? Maybe. It depends on what country you live in. For a lot of countries, probably not. Probably not. Not with the way the laws are going. In Europe, probably not soon. Not with the way the laws are going. In Canada, probably not soon. Probably not the way the laws are going. I think that's why we've had Canada might be one of the biggest upticks we've had in people we've been working with. Obviously, we're always working with a lot of people in the U.S., but Canada, because it's becoming a third world country. Same thing with Australia. It's ridiculous. It's crazy what's happening over there. So, and unlike the United States that's chopping a lot of this down, unfortunately, Canada and Australia is not. They're just not. And so, I really don't know what to tell you. WireX is actually London. So WireX is London-based, and they're non-custodial. So basically, the way you structure some of this, and I've been looking at a few. So where's this? Let me pull this up. Pull this up for me real quick. So we've got London, we've got the United States, we've got a couple others. Yeah. So WireX is pretty good because looks like they've got global distribution. And what you typically look for in a lot of banks is banks that have global distribution, banks that have app features, banks that can connect into some exchanges, and banks that are crypto friendly. Because there's a lot of banks that are actually banning crypto and banning the use of crypto. There's a lot of banks that are calling it a scam or a fraud, et cetera, et cetera. And you really got to watch that because that's becoming a problem for a lot of people. The next one I want to talk about is Bitwala. Now, Bitwala is another one of my favorites, just like Simple Bank, because it is non-custodial. It is in Berlin, which, we'll see. We'll see. Again, I shy away from most things in Europe. Europe is one of the worst places, with the exception of Switzerland, at this point, to have any assets, because I don't think Europe, the leaders in Europe are reading their history books, and some of the moves they're making right now looks like history from the 40s might repeat itself. But Switzerland is one of the only countries in Europe I'm seeing that have their head screwed on. And make no mistake, I don't think the United States has their head screwed on. Our leadership is some of the worst we've ever had in this country's history. But with our Constitution and with our courts, we're slapping down a lot of the stupidity left, right, and center. Unfortunately, in some of these other countries, that's not happening. But Bitwala with the non-custodial in Berlin, that is a very good option. So we're also going to talk about another option that you guys could utilize, which is, believe it or not, U.S. Bank. Now, I mentioned them in the beginning, U.S. Bank and Wells Fargo. A lot of people don't realize the difference between a business bank and a personal bank, and how you can structure business lines of credit, how you can actually structure corporate lines of credit for an operating company. Now, the laws are going to vary slightly in country to country, but here in the United States, I've set up banks with U.S. Bank, and I've set up a couple of different operating companies with this bank. And what it allows me to do is operate only through crypto assets. So when I'm buying into crypto assets, basically I'm doing a zero interest loan, buying into crypto assets. I'm paying the loan off 100% on a month-to-month basis. So I carry no balance, and I carry no balance, I pay no interest, and I have no risk. So it's a pretty interesting structure, because basically if the system collapses, which I believe at some point it will, I just bankrupt the company, and then the company goes into obscurity. It doesn't affect anything, because what it is it's a domestic company that's owned by a offshore holding company, let's say, but it's not my main company. It's not even my secondary company. It's not even I own at this point a string of probably 6-7 dozen of these things, because we're really good at structuring them. And what we're able to do is structure it. Now, keep in mind, this is all legit. It's all above board. But if the economy crashes or the market crashes, basically we're able to pull ourselves out through the operating company, and the company would just crash. That's what would happen to assets. Now, if things go really good, we're on the up and up, and what it does is it builds the corporate credit. And what I'm doing is I'm actually fronting the money. So even though everything's going through the line of credit, I'm paying it off every single month, month after month, and then I'm keeping my profits, and I'm basically just rolling my profits into crypto, which is a great way to do operationally. And because of the crypto laws overseas that I'm using my property as, what it allows me to do is keep my property overseas, so I pay a very small effective corporate tax rate, but also it allows me to utilize corporate credit at no interest. And the reason it's no interest because I pay it off month over month, so they keep giving me bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger limits, trying to get you on the hook to buy something where you're paying payments, because that's how they make their money. And then what happens is you keep reinvesting it and you're paying on a cash value. But because the market has been so good in crypto this last year, it's just been a win-win-win. And I've taken out 100% of the risk, because worst case scenario, again, I would pay it off because my company is liquid. But if you got into a bad situation, somebody could just bankrupt that company. And make no mistake, I would. I could care less, because it's the bank's problem, not my problem. Now, do I recommend doing this? No. And I don't recommend doing it in fraud. Now, it would be fraudulent if you were utilizing the money and circling the money. The reason it's not fraudulent, I need you to understand that, is because I'm personally paying off the balance on a month-to-month basis. And then if the company gets out of the profit zone and goes into the red, then it's legit. You do not have to use your personal assets. So keep in mind, I will never use my personal assets to pay for this, ever, under any circumstances. Why do you think billionaires and millionaires go bankrupt all the time? A lot of people think bankrupt is when you lose everything. For a lot of people who are rich, the bankruptcy laws actually work best if you're rich, because it allows you to alleviate different debts, especially corporate bankruptcy laws. I'm not telling you to go bankrupt, but if you know how the bankruptcy laws work, I'm not talking about liquidation. I'm talking about forfeiture of a company and lack thereof capital assets, which is going to allow you to win. And it's basically playing the game the same way the bank does. I want to be clear. This is exactly what the bank does. The difference is the bank does it with your money. I'm doing it with my money, and kind of the banks, because there is that loan. And if we ever have an SHTF, I can just go like this, and there's nothing the bank can do. And they know it, and they don't care, because they just write it off. It's all part of the game. I just do it at a much smaller scale than the bank. The bank does it with trillions of dollars. So keep that in mind as the market grows. There's a lot of things you can do. And it's another more advanced structure that I help a lot of clients with as they grow, but something you guys can look into. But anyway, if you haven't already, make sure you check out PrivacyX. Appreciate you guys checking out this video. Make sure you go all in everything you do. Stay awake, stay alert. Understand that a lot's changing around you, and you need to utilize the laws of the land of wherever you live, your domicile, or how your structure is built to your advantage, because these people are playing the game. These politicians are becoming millionaires and billionaires. These bankers are becoming trillionaires, and it's all done legally through a corporate structure. Again, I hate to say it, guys. There is no sovereign citizen. There is no land and soil. There is no correcting your status. I did a video on that recently, and it opened up a lot of people's eyes to what's going on. This world is ran on a corporate structure. You can either play the game with the rules that are laid out for you, or you could get fleeced like everyone else. Appreciate you checking this out. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Have an amazing day. Let me know if there's any banks I missed down below, any banks you think I should add, any banks that you think. And again, these are for people that are typically a net worth of under 100K, maybe 100, 200K. I'm not talking about the premium banks offshore and stuff like that with, some of my higher dollar clients. If you've got at least a couple $100,000 in crypto, or if you got a couple $100,000 in cash, there's a lot of different things we can do. If you're a millionaire, of course. But for a lot of you that are looking at playing in crypto with a couple of thousand, these are great options for you to take back control, privacy, non-custodial. You keep your keys, because some of these banks now are trying to act like exchanges and actually have your crypto keys, because they want to centralize crypto. And I've talked about that with the Fed coin and these other cryptocurrencies around the world. Germany's talking about them. The UK is talking about them. Australia looks like they're launching one. These are not going to be cryptocurrencies. These are going to be digital dollar, digital pound, digital whatever their currency is. And you're going to have no keys. You're going to have no control. They can pull it out of your account whenever. It's going to be way, way, way worse. It's not going to be like cash where you have physical control. They're going to have custody of all of your assets at all time. You do not want that. And crypto is dying on a vine. The metaverse is not helping the way the metaverse is going. We need the metaverse to be open source and secure. And unfortunately, it's not becoming open source. It's not becoming secure. It's becoming closed source and controlled. And I want the metaverse to be amazing, but people aren't pulling their head out of their sand and they're not understanding what's happening around them. These big companies, these banks are taking crypto and they're making it controlled. They're making it a tracking device. You don't seem to understand that. And once all that happens, you're not going to see these big blowups. You're not going to see 500% gains. You're going to see 5% gains. It's just going to be like the stock market 2.0, overly regulated, overly controlled, overly manipulated. It's an absolute and utter fraud and a joke. Don't let that happen to crypto, and never, ever give up your privacy, your security. It's a right, and it's a right that you need to protect, because no one's going to protect it for you. Your government's not going to protect it for you. These companies aren't going to protect it for you. Your neighbors aren't going to protect it for you. You need to protect it for yourself and your family. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.